Coming up next on Good Morning El Paso, one of the most wanted men in both the U.S. and Mexico is now behind bars. A look at the countless charges he could be indicted on. Also,
at this time, we're transitioning from screening to treatment. We now have 18 babies who are being treated with medication.
As the health department announces the number of babies exposed to tuberculosis at Providence rises, ABC7 learns only a small fraction are being treated.
Another virus has American airports on high alert this morning. Starting tomorrow, a major U.S. airport will start screening for the Ebola virus. A look at the problems that is now causing.
Live, where news comes first. From the Mesilla Valley and Las Cruces to El Paso and the borderland. This is ABC7's Good Morning El Paso.
A very good morning, El Paso, Las Cruces, and Juarez. I'm Luke Liddon, in for Bob Harp.
Well, welcome and thanks for waking up so early.
Of course.
I'm Hillary Florin. Good morning, everyone. We do start this morning with our round-the-clock coverage right now. On a serious note, one person is in critical condition right now after a serious rollover involving an SUV. It happened last night around 10 at I-10 East and Anthony Exit 0. We know one person was ejected in the crash.
An Anthony Police Department had to shut down I-10 East to let a medevac chopper land. The person was flown to a local hospital, and traffic investigators are still investigating. We'll continue to update you as soon as we get any more information.
A live look at traffic right now. Speaking of, this is not that accident we just told you about. That scene is now clear, but this is I-10 at Vinton. It's closed right now due to road work, but we know that I-10 again at Anthony is open. Other than that, traffic looks good throughout the borderland on the interstate.
And more around-the-clock news, fire investigators are still trying to find out what caused a house fire earlier this morning. Crews were called out to the 6900 block of Canyon Run, which is just off Red Road on the west side. We're told the fire started on the roof and has since been put out. There were no injuries to report, and the estimate of the damage is still not known.
Well, it is 6:02, and hey, it's Friday morning. We're all excited about that.
Love the Friday.
Love it. Let's talk to Crystal Clay and see how things are looking this weekend. Good morning.
Good morning, Luke and Hillary. Great forecast that we have moving forward today. We do have that slightest chance of rain still in some parts of the region, but otherwise mostly sunny, low 80s to upper 70s. Can't complain about the forecast. This morning, clouds and radar showing us we are starting out clear around the entire region. It's not until the later part of your day, that afternoon and evening, we may see a few storms pop up. Again, primarily like yesterday in the north edge of our viewing area. Your temperatures this morning were at 64 in El Paso, winds 8 miles per hour, a little cooler at 55 in Las Cruces, and those low temperatures, they're going to feel nice in the days to come. By your next weekend, could we move into the 40s in areas? We'll take a look in your forecast about 10 minutes from now.
All right, thanks so much, Crystal. We have a traffic alert to pass along right now. It will affect a lot of us this weekend. Starting early Sunday morning, a section of I-10 between downtown El Paso and the UTEP campus will be completely closed in both directions. The Yandell Bridge that goes over the freeway there is set to be removed, and crews will install a concrete barrier over the new Spur 1966 bridge. So eastbound drivers will have to get off at Sunland Park and take Paisano. You can imagine the backup. They won't be allowed back onto I-10 until the US 54 ramp. That's quite a while. Meanwhile, the westbound drivers will have to exit at Porfirio Diaz, and they'll be able to re-enter I-10 at Schuster. So once again, this will be from 5 a.m. Sunday until 5 a.m. Monday, so all day Sunday.
And headlines now, one of Mexico's most wanted criminals is behind bars this morning. Vicente Carrillo Fuentes, also known as El Viceroy, was taken into custody by police in a helicopter yesterday. Carrillo Fuentes is the suspected leader of the Juarez drug cartel. Sources say Fuentes was taken into custody in Torreon, a city in the northern Mexican state of Coahuila. Officials are being very tight-lipped about the arrest, and no one has openly said how they found Carrillo Fuentes or how his capture unfolded. Here's ABC7's Stephanie Valle with more.
A new image of the Juarez drug cartel leader. This picture of Vicente Carrillo Fuentes was circulated by a Mexican journalist shortly after his arrest. A much different image from the one authorities have been showing us for decades, as long as he's been wanted in Mexico and the U.S.
Vicente Carrillo Fuentes has been indicted by a federal grand jury for the deaths of 10 individuals in order to ensure their silence about his organization.
Carrillo Fuentes also faces a 46-count indictment here in Texas. He's charged with drug trafficking, money laundering, and murder. There was a $5 million reward on his head from U.S. authorities alone.
A highly dangerous, high-risk individual that is a discredit to our community.
The cartel leader was tied to mass graves Juarez police uncovered in 1999. They were found at 3 ranches near Juarez. According to the ABC7 archive, a U.S. informant told authorities as many as 100 bodies might be found at the sites. Carrillo Fuentes was charged with the murders of 9 people found in the graves. Another mass grave uncovered in 2004 in Juarez, this one in the backyard of a home. 11 bodies were unearthed there. The home and the mass grave were also tied to Carrillo Fuentes and the Juarez drug cartel.
If Vicente has any evidence on anything about anybody, perhaps cooperating or providing information, they're found on a bridge dead or in a hole on a ranch.
That was Stephanie Valle reporting. Our archives show Mexican authorities said they had arrested Carrillo Fuentes twice, once in 2005 and again in 2013, but they recanted both times. So coming up a little later in the show today, we'll take a look at how the people of Juarez are now reacting to Fuentes' arrest. The arrest of Fuentes comes a week after another high-profile arrest. Hector Beltran Leyva, the alleged leader of the Beltran Leyva cartel, was caught just last week. He assumed leadership of that criminal organization in 2009 after Marines gunned down his brother. And then in February, Joaquin El Chapo Guzman, the leader of the Sinaloa cartel, was arrested in Mazatlan. Interesting to note that in all 3 of those arrests, not a single gunshot was fired.
Major news out of Austin that could affect elections next month. A federal judge has blocked Texas from enforcing voter ID requirements, likening the requirements to a poll tax meant to suppress minority voter turnout. We are less than a month away from Election Day, and the time could spare almost 14 million registered Texas voters from needing to show a photo ID to cast a ballot. The Texas Attorney General is now seeking an emergency stay. And in other news this morning, a Las Cruces man has died after sustaining injuries in a motorcycle crash last week. It happened last Thursday on Torrevis Drive in Las Cruces. Police say 47-year-old Raymond Jones Jr. intentionally drove into oncoming traffic as a joke when he spotted a friend of his coming his way in a van. When he tried to get back in his lane, the van clipped his motorcycle and Jones was thrown from the bike. Jones died at UMC here in El Paso. The El Paso Water Utilities wants to increase the stormwater fee on your water bill to help build flood prevention projects to weather a 100-year storm. But what exactly does that mean? EPWU defines that as 3 inches of rain in a 24-hour period. It says it determines that number by averaging rainfall totals in different parts of the city. Well, ABC7 checked with the National Weather Service, and meteorologist John Fawcett says the National Weather Service has a different definition of a 100-year storm.
If you look at, the government agencies, basically the federal government agencies as a source, a 100-year rainfall in 24 hours would be almost 4 inches.
So what about that big storm we had last month? The Northeast got 6 inches of rain. The Weather Service says that's about a 1,000-year storm, and the utility says it would be too costly to build facilities to protect for a storm that size.
Well, happening right now, hundreds of soldiers here in the States are now doing infectious disease training as they're, of course, getting ready to head to the Ebola hot zone.
This as 6 medical teams from the U.S. have already arrived in Liberia. ABC's Taman Bradley has the latest developing on the Ebola crisis.
It was a joke, but nobody on board this plane was laughing. A hazmat team boarded this U.S. Airways flight after a passenger sneezed and said he had Ebola. Another passenger heard the comment and told a flight attendant, who then alerted the captain. Although the man was kidding, the airline followed strict CDC guidelines.
This is what you never expect or want to see on your plane, is 4 guys in hazmat suits.
This morning, there are several new Ebola cases around the world. In Spain, 8 doctors and nurses are in isolation after treating an Ebola patient. So far, only one of the workers has tested positive for the disease. 6 U.S. military planes arrived in West Africa on Thursday to help with the outbreak. While back home, soldiers at Fort Bragg are getting special training ahead of their deployment to the Ebola hot zone.
When I was in Afghanistan, it was totally different. I was concerned about my health, but not really as this one. I'm very concerned about my health. What kind of disease can I get?
U.S. hospitals and airports remain on high alert. Starting Saturday, New York's John F. Kennedy Airport will begin new screening measures for all passengers arriving from African nations ravaged by Ebola. Similar screenings begin next week at 4 other big international hubs. In Dallas, good news for the sheriff's deputy who was rushed to the hospital by paramedics in hazmat gear. tests for Ebola have come back negative.
The public is safe. We need to all stay calm and carry on with our daily lives.
A startling message from the head of the CDC. He's urging action to stop the spread of Ebola before it becomes as big as the AIDS crisis. Timon Bradley, ABC News, Washington.
Well, do you love soccer? Would you want a MLS franchise to set up shop right here in the borderland? We'll tell you how you can show your support for the group trying to bring a soccer team to El Paso coming up.
And one local house is getting national attention as it enters a competition for the best holiday light display in America. A sneak peek of the taping for the show, The Great Christmas Light Fight.
I guess it only makes sense they have to shoot it so early in the year,
does,
right?
yeah.
It's happening all over the country. Funny to think. Let's check in with meteorologist Crystal Cly right now. It's funny to be talking about the holidays already, isn't it?
Yeah, it feels a little early, but actually we have a couple cold fronts that are going to roll through, affecting those temperatures. We'll talk about how low they're going to go. A little too cold for my taste. That's after the break.
Thanks, Crystal. This is ABC 7, where news comes first.
You're watching ABC 7's Good Morning El Paso with Hillary Florin, Bob Hart, Storm Track weather meteorologist Crystal Cly, and live reports from Denise Olivas.